Geek Out!
Hey, and welcome to another installment of Geek Out. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
I'm Josh.
We've got another double-header interview. I feel like we haven't had one of those since, like, Roche Limit. But this time we're going to be talking with the creative team behind the Image Comics book Mythic. That's Phil Hester and John McCrea. I introduced them in the actual interview, so you can find out exactly what they worked on, because I don't want to do that twice. So, without much further ado, here it is. Joining us this week, we've got John McCrea. He's the artist on Mythic by Image Comics, along with Phil Hester. He's also drawn Hitman. He's drawn Judge Dredd. He's drawn The Boys. He's drawn Section 8 for DC. John, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Everything. Are you over in Northern Ireland, or are you just in the Great Britain, like the proper?
Yeah, I was born in Northern Ireland in Belfast, but I've been living in the mainland since I was about 24, something like that. I moved over shortly after my comic career took off.
Because you grew up with Garth Ennis, right?
Well, Garth and Ennis, and Garth and I went to the same school, but Garth was in 2 or 3 years below me. He was in my youngest brother's year. So I knew of him, and he knew of me, and we were both interested in comics. So Garth read mainly war comics, and I read mainly superheroes. So, but then later on, I opened a comic shop in Belfast's first comic shop, along with my mate Fred Collier. And Garth used to come in and buy his comics off me, and that's where we properly met, and where he first pitched the idea of Troubled Souls to me, and such like.
Well, so you've worked with Garth, on several projects, but you've also worked with Phil Hester on The Atheist, which I suppose is about 10 years old now.
Yeah, it'd be about that. Yeah, I've also worked with Phil on 2 other books, War Paint for Strip Magazine, which was a short-running and comics anthology in the UK, and we did a strip called War Paint for that, which of course never got finished because the magazine folded due to lots of various, problems that are too boring to go into. And then we worked on Progenitor for David Lloyd's digital-only anthology magazine called Aces Weekly, which is still running, and it's a great mag. So anybody who's looking for a great digital comic, check out Aces Weekly. David Lloyd edits it and sometimes contributes, and it's got a whole host of other creators going on there. And Phil and I did a strip for it called Progenitor, which is basically, Dave asked me to do something for it, and I said to Phil, I want to draw dinosaurs versus aliens, and that's what Phil wrote, and that's what I drew. And it was only 22 pages. It was meant to run for about 64, but unfortunately the sales on the digital just didn't bring in enough money to cover my page rate. So again, that was a book that Phil and I would like to finish because I love drawing dinosaurs, and it's terrible to leave things just hanging. We had talked briefly with Titan in the UK about continuing it, but no, not to be. So yeah. And I've worked with a lot of other guys as well. I've worked with Warren Ellis as well.
Sure. On
Legends of Dark Knight for DC and various other folks that I can't quite recall at the moment.
Well, how has your kind of working relationship with Phil kind of evolved since The Atheist? I mean, you're not necessarily drawing dinosaurs, but you're drawing big, like, giants and this sort of thing now.
Oh, sure. That's on Mythic. And The Atheist, The Atheist, which was really the first book we did together. Phil I think he works with people he doesn't know in a kind of Kurtzman manner, the way Kurtzman used to do in the old EC books. He would do layouts. He would write the script and then do layouts that showed how he wanted the things positioned on the page, how many panels and the size of the panels and things like that. And Phil did that for the first 2 or 3 issues of The Atheist, maybe, only the first 2 issues of The Atheist, and then he figured out that I was perfectly capable of doing it myself. But I must admit I really enjoyed working over Phil's layouts. Now it's got to the point where Phil doesn't write full script. He sort of works more Marvel style with me and allows me to really run with the story. A lot of the little incidental bits where I'll take an idea that he's put down and expand on it. So it's kind of much more creative process with Mythic than it has been with any other writer I've worked with, to tell you the honest goodness truth. He's, Phil and I trust each other, so we just get on with it, and it means that he doesn't have to spend as long working on the script. He can get on with other stuff because he's a busy guy.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been noticing with Mythic, the art has a bit more grit to it than, say, Hitman or The Boys, and there's a more muted color palette. Was that something that you felt was dictated by story, or was that just kind of a more like you were interested in changing your style?
Well, I had been slowly changing my style since Hitman anyway. I've changed my style over the years quite a bit. I mean, if you look at Spider-Man's Tangled Web I did way back, or Superboy for that matter, for DC with Jimmy Palmiotti writing, you'll see my style is much more cartoony and open in those strips. It kind of predates the whole Batman animated stuff that is, and unfortunately I think to a degree I was a little bit ahead of the time with those, he said, trying not to be boastful, but of course, and a little bit, and they were much more cartoony, Batman animated-y sort of style, and then you got things like Hitman, which is much more realistic, and with Mythic, it was my inking that I wanted to change more than anything. The basic structure underneath was fine, though I did try and sort of improve in my women. I'm not the greatest woman artist because I've grown up drawing. I was growing up through comics, drawing Garth Ennis stories generally, and they tend to focus around men shooting other men. Generally, there are exceptions to those rules, but that is the case. So I'm not really that great a female artist, so I wanted to kind of improve my skills there. But with Mythic, it was more of a textural approach to the inking, and I looked at a lot of 1930s American illustrators, Flag and such like and so forth, and looked at the inking techniques and styles of those guys. Not that I'm saying I succeeded in coming any even a tenth as close to doing anything as half as good as them, but that was what I was bouncing off, I suppose. And that was the way I was taking it.
Hey, John, I wanted to ask. We're all big fans of Judge Dredd here, and it's always great to.
Sure, cool.
It's always great to talk to somebody who gets to play in Mega City 1. And I kind of wanted to ask, like, what was your kind of background with Dredd, and what was it like working on the character?
Well, yeah, I've been reading 2000 AD since issue 1. I picked it up from the shop when came out in 77, so I was 11, and it blew my tiny mind. Before 2000 AD came out, there was a comic called Action, which was the precursor. Again, Pat Mills and John Wagner worked on Action, and it had a comic strip called Hookjaw and another one called Dredger. And Hookjaw was basically a Jaws parody, but it took everything, every bit of ultra-violence that you could imagine, and sort of it blew it up to just unimaginable amounts. I remember sitting on my sofa at home with the latest issue of Action, and there was a big splash page of Hookjaw leaping out of the water and biting two young lads who were in a boat into pieces with their heads spiraling off into the distance and things like that. And me just sitting there going, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And then of course it got caught it came under the radar of the censorship police. There was a woman called Mary Whitehouse who was very strong on sort of morals and all that sort of baloney back in the 70s and early 80s, and she saw Hookjaw, and Action was basically shut down. So what Pat Mills and John Wagner did was basically take all the ultraviolence but put it in the future so that it just was less corrupt, seen as less impactful, because all the other stories were set in present day, and in fact had things like teenage kids, fighting the police and such like. That was a football strip. I can't remember the name of it, just off the top of my head. It really was pilloried by the conservative moral guardians of our sort of souls. But God bless them. And so by sticking it in the future, it kind of softened that blow, but it still, of course, was 2018. Anyway, I read 2000 for years and years and years and loved it. And then, broke into comics by working on Crisis, really, with Garth on Troubled Souls, which was the sister publication to 2000. And so it was not a great leap to then jump on to 2000 AD. And I didn't do a lot of Dredd stuff. I did a Chopper story for the magazine, and I did a Midden-Face McNulty story for the magazine, and then I did some Dredds here and there. But recently I did a 3-part Dredd with John Wagner. I mean, I'm pretty pally with John, and I was round at his house a couple of years ago, and I basically said to him, John, if I die and I haven't drawn a John Wagner written Judge Dredd story, I'll die pretty pissed off. So John just sort of went, yeah, we'll see what we can do. And so we did that 3-parter. And in fact, I was just chatting to John the other day, and we might be doing another 3-parter together.
Ooh.
Which is cool.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, John's just he's Dredd really.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Him and Carlos and Alan Grant are the guys really. And then you've got guys like Steve Dillon, who's some of the great stuff in Bolland, and of course Mick McMahon, who are just the masters of it all. But and us poor peons can only just sort of crawl about and sort of hope for scraps with those guys. But it's always great to draw Dredd. He's really enjoyable to draw, and I did that 4-part thing for IDW with Al Ewing recently as well, which was good fun. Mars Attacks Judge Dredd.
Oh yeah,
I got to draw
those are fantastic.
Dredd just Dredd punching the hell out of Martians, literally punching their heads so that they explode.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, one of my favorite art pieces you did with Dredd was when you did the Mask of the Judge Death, which
which
was really cool. Like a lot of like that, just the great black and white kind of negative space, and just having Judge Death just roll in and just pop people's heads and kill everyone and move on. But obviously very much Mask of the Red Death. That was just a really great. I think it's like what some of the great things that you can do with 2000 AD and Dredd is just
you take subjects. I mean, you take the Mask of the Red Death and just transport it and fit really well. Mm-hmm. That was Cy Spencer wrote that. All those many moons ago. He's now writing quite a lot of stuff, or was for Vertigo. I don't know if he's I don't know what the state of play is with Vertigo at the moment, but no. I suppose there's a degree of truth in that.
Maybe Dan Didio.
This is all getting a bit too political for me. I'm going to step back right now. But yes, I wrote that, and it was good fun. I love drawing Death.
Oh, yeah.
Death is such a cool looking character. The 4 Dark Judges are so great to draw. They're just so enjoyable. I did a very bizarre comic for 2000 AD, which was a poster magazine, and it was Placebo, the rock group, Placebo, meeting Judge Anderson and fighting the 4 dark judges while on stage at one of their concerts in Mega City.
That's awesome.
And it was done as a promotional thing to be given away with Rock Sounds magazine, and also with Glastonbury, or one of the big rock concerts over in the UK, just that Placebo were playing at. But it was getting to draw Death and co again, even under strange and weird circumstances like that. It was always enjoyable. I love those characters.
Yeah. Was it Reading?
Just so great.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Was it Reading Festival? Reading
might have been Reading.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have no clue. They told me where, and then I, within milliseconds had forgotten, because I have a goldfish-like brain. So,
Now,
I'm afraid so.
It's all right. There's no solicitation date for Mythic #9, and you guys kind of end on a real kind of crossroads. Do you guys have a tentative schedule for Mythic's return?
Well, I've started drawing it. We just got to wait and see basically how it's going. Withdrawing Section 8 and Mythic at the same time, there were a couple of great big gaps between issues in Mythic, which didn't do its sales any good whatsoever. And I hold up my hand entirely as the man responsible for that, unfortunately. But I just didn't want to turn down Section 8 either. It was too good. I just love those characters. But it has meant that Mythic is perhaps not doing as well as it could do. I'm trying to put this and sort of couch this in certain terms so that I'm not saying we're doomed or anything. But if everybody who's listening to this goes out and buy the Mythic trade paperback, everything will be fine. Everything will be good.
As a reminder,
please
stores,
nip out to your local comics emporium and pick up Mythic trade paperback. It's a steal, 248 pages for a mere $16.99. I don't know, something like that.
And available on Comixology on the same day if you guys prefer the old digital stuff. But available June 22nd. John, to kind of wrap things up.
I don't know, something like that.
I think
around that kind of date.
Yeah. John, to kind of wrap things up, one thing we ask every single guest on the show is, what are you currently geeking out over?
Book-wise, let me see, what have I just been reading? Well, at the moment, I'm still trolling my way through 20th Century Boys, the manga by some guy whose name I can't pronounce. But it's really, really good. It's 22 volumes or something like that. Jamie McKelvey put me onto it. Bless you, Jamie. It's a cracking read. I'm on volume 15, I think, at the moment. I'm also reading anything written by Rick Remender, Brian K. Vaughan, those guys. I generally pick up Image books these days, for the most part, though I buy Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, which is cracking good fun. Miss Marvel, the guy who draws that, I can't remember his name, but, he drew those issues, the first bunch of issues, is just phenomenally good artist, and your woman is such a great writer. Character is so well constructed, so good. Miss Marvel's great. Let me think, what else?
Anything music, movies?
Music? Oh, I don't know. Jesus, slowly. I don't know. As far as a new pop group goes, I recently discovered the Arctic Monkeys.
Oh, they're so
good. So that's that's about as new as I get. Christ, I don't know.
We've been listening to a lot of Prince lately, so yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that, isn't there? Yeah. I'm a big Prince fan, I guess. I mean, who isn't? You'd have to be deranged not to like him.
Yeah, it's true.
Have you seen that? You see that jam that he did recently? Well, a while back. There was him and a bunch of other people.
While My Guitar Gently Weeps?
Yeah.
For the...
Seen that? That was cracking. God, that was so good. And the bit where he just lobs the guitar above his head, and it vanishes, and he just walks off like, hey, I'm the coolest motherfucker in the universe.
And he also...
just strolls off.
He also has...
Going, where'd the guitar go?
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
It just floated back to the heavens.
So amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Cloud of purple smoke.
Yeah. Well, he also would have.
There you go.
He has that bodyguard that would just stand there to catch him because he would just fall in the crowd like he used to do in Purple Rain, and then just push him back up.
That's right.
So
that was great.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah. No. So he's awesome, and yes, I must admit I may have listened to a bit of Prince recently.
Sure.
Comics, movies. Oh, I suppose I watched Captain America: Civil War recently.
Oh yeah.
Which was bloody great. Really enjoyed that. What's that?
The Stellar, top marks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those guys, the Winter Soldier directors, the Russo brothers, they've got it sort of out. That at night, if I finished working late and I'm kind of chilling out, I'll slap on Winter Soldier, the freeway fight sequence, and just sit there and watch that and go, God, that is such a great fight sequence. I don't think I've seen a better fight sequence, really. Partly it's true because it's Marvel superheroes, and I'm an old Marvel zombie, so Yeah. So it's great just seeing all these characters done really well.
Yeah, and seeing Spider-Man, Spider-Man back with the Avengers and everything.
I know. That was great. But I think the bit that I just laughed out loud most too was Ant-Man becoming Giant
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
It's just like, is this spoilers? Is this spoilers?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
You can edit that. Ant-Man becoming or something, and just a quick Prince solo over the top of it, just to cover up the spoiler.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean,
True.
I mean, this interview
he would, wouldn't he?
He would.
This interview is going to be attached to an episode where we're going to be talking all about Civil War, so we'll have a big warning before the...
Yeah.
Flashing lights and everything.
Fair enough.
Well,
so I guess, unfortunately, I haven't watched any of the DC movies since Batman Returns, I guess. And I just don't understand how the two companies one can get it so right and the other can get it so wrong.
Yeah.
It's just baffling to me. But and I hadn't been to the cinema for about 5 years or something like that when Batman Returns came on. The first of I don't know which trilogy it was. God, I can't keep up. And everybody was raving about how good it was. And I thought, well, I really want to go and see a really good movie. If I'm going after 5 years, I'm going to go to the cinema the first time. And it came on, and the first 15 minutes were superb. It was like, oh, this is great. He's getting trained. He's all ninja-like. And then it just turned into a Jerry Bruckheimer explosion fest and I just couldn't follow anything. It was just like, what? And he had the stupid ears and he talked that way. And I was just like, oh God, this is terrible. So I quit DC movies at that point. I just went, nope, I can't be dealing with any of that. It's just, Batman would be so easy to get so right. And yet, and Superman too, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess they just,
you got to draw Superman talk to Tommy. That was one of my favorite issues of Hitman,
Yeah, a lot of people like that. But I mean, that's the funny thing, isn't it? Somebody like Garth, who you would expect in no way would write a good Superman story, writes one of the best Superman stories about. And then you get old Zack Snyder, and he doesn't understand the character at all. No. It's just, why is this like this? It's just ridiculous. And he just. Well, anyway, enough of that. I guess I've just shot down any chance of storyboarding any future DC movies. But, well, there you go. That's just me.
Yeah, maybe you'll do Cap.
Yeah. Maybe you could storyboard some Dredd or something, or
storyboard
get that back
Dredd.
on.
Oh yeah, get that back on the air.
Yeah.
You just got the
that would be like, I'll kill Jock, and then maybe I'm in with a chance. Yeah. So if any of you guys ever sort of bump into him at a show and you happen to have any cyanide on you, just drop it into his drink and do me a righteous, would you?
Yeah.
Apologize to Scott Snyder while I do it.
Yeah, we got your back on it.
I'm not sure what I'm moving into here. That's right. Okay. Slowly assassinating all the good artists.
All the other image artists.
Yeah. Hey, look who's left, guys. At which point they all quit. And just go write books.
It becomes a prose medium.
Exactly. All we're left with is McCrea. Let's go to prose. Oh, well.
Well.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah, well,
Jeez,
well, John.
I'm putting the gun in my mouth.
John, thanks for coming on the show. And, of course, Mythic Volume 1 will be out in comic book shops everywhere Wednesday, June 22nd. You can get the first 8 issues individually on Comixology or at a comic book store near you. John, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Good talking to you.
You too.
All the best. Bye.
Bye. And joining us, we've also got Phil Hester, the writer of Mythic. He's also written Black Terror for Project Superpowers. He's written Wonder Woman for DC Comics. He's worked quite extensively with Kevin Smith. Phil, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Mythic, how did the idea of this kind of like almost like Ghostbusterian squad for Magic Gone Wrong come about?
Well, I always was a big fan of mythology as a kid, and Just like the same way I like superheroes, I was drawn to the weird superheroes. While everybody else was digging Batman and Superman, I was into Ragman and the Creeper. And so it was that way with mythology too. Everybody knows about Hercules, but I was more interested in these kind of oddball stories from mythology of all cultures, and I was just was banking these weird stories in my mind and in my imagination, and looking for a way to make a super team out of these kind of weird gods and demigods and heroes from these lesser known cultures. And when John McCrea, we were always looking for reasons to work together, and I've got this like master pitch list that's about, I don't know, 30 or 40 ideas on it, and I sent it to John, and I said, pick something out here that you want to do. And we have similar bent toward weirdness, and this was the thing he picked because it sort of rang true to him the way it does to me. And so the whole book is our attempt to do, what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did for Norse mythology, to do that for every worldview on Earth with Mythic.
Well, I'm counting what, like you've done Norse, you've done Greek, so you've kind of knocked out the big familiar two. I mean,
yeah.
So I'm guessing you guys would go what, like Far East, kind of like get like the Chinese mythology or maybe like Aztec mythology next.
Yeah, we're going everywhere. I mean, we do a lot of Indonesian stuff in this first arc too. So yeah, we'll just sort of go wherever the story goes. I pretty much, I don't know if John put it to you this way, but before he start any story, I ask John what he feels like drawing, and we sort of go from there.
Well, he was saying you guys kind of went Marvel style for this one.
Yeah, we do. I have very few books I write Marvel style. Fire Breather is another example of a book I did Marvel style. But yeah, what I give John is basically a radio play. I give him lines of dialogue, and then very, very rudimentary action ahead of that. I tell him what needs to happen on a page, but as far as breaking it down, I leave that to him.
So more like outline than full script.
Yeah, oh, definitely. But well, actually, there is a full script there because I do think it's important that an artist knows what the dialogue beats are, in terms of, what kind of expressions to give each character. But I leave the actual, panel by panel breakdown to John. And I number the dialogue so he knows where to, when he gives me roughs back, he's got the dialogue in place so I can see how the beats work. And then, I just finagle it from there.
Now, you had first worked with John about, I guess, 10 years ago now on The Atheist, also with Image Comics. Yeah. How has your kind of like working relationship kind of like changed and evolved since then?
Completely different. I mean, I think in that first one, I was still transitioning from being a mostly full-time artist to writer. And so my natural way of writing his scripts was a lot like I approached it as an artist. So I don't know if you ever saw how Harvey Kurtzman used to write books for EC back in the day, but he would actually do thumbnails of the pages. They're very rudimentary thumbnails, but he would do thumbnails of the pages and then type up a script that went along with it. And I was doing that at that point in my career also. I was actually making little mock-ups of the actual book from start to finish. So I was also, and so that's what John was getting from me back then. He was getting full scripts with little thumbnails of each page that he could take or leave. And, since John is such an accomplished storyteller himself, he would often leave them, and I was okay with that. It's just that I was more comfortable expressing myself with my writing through my art.
Well, I suppose it was just what you were kind of more familiar with at that point. Grant Morrison did something similar when he was giving McKean the pitches to or pages for Arkham Asylum back in the 80s.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and that's very similar to the way it works because, I kind of view I view drawing comics and writing comics as sort of different places on the same spectrum, which is visual storytelling. And so just, moving from art to writing is sort of just sliding the dial over a little bit. And so I can never really separate art from writing in comics.
Now, you had kind of touched on your kind of love of more obscure mythology. What really was it about like Mythic though? Because you've got the shamanic leader for the team. You've got you've got the I guess phone salesman or phone repair guy that just happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time or right place at the right time. I'm not really sure.
The right place, I'd say, yeah, but yeah.
So how did this idea really kind of coalesce?
Well, I'm always looking for ways to sort of humanize larger than life things, to ground really large concepts and the best way to do that is with kind of humanistic humor. And so I'll go back again to Fire Breather again. I don't know how familiar you are with that book or if you're familiar with it at all, but it's about a kid who is the son of a human and a kaiju, and how his mom wants him to go on and get into community college, but his dad wants him to grow up to be king of the monsters. And it's sort of those were larger than life concepts. These whole ideas, Godzilla like monsters, but grounding it in everyday teenage life sort of humanized those larger concepts. So I wanted to apply that also with Mythic. I wanted to apply that to concepts of gods and magic and the whole how people perceive reality. It's easy to get kind of pretentious and bogged down with quote unquote deep thoughts when you're dealing with that stuff. And I just wanted to approach it the way I actually think about those things, which is like the universe is like, so, baffling and bewildering that it's actually kind of funny. You can look at it one or two ways. You can just throw up your arms and say, well, we'll never know anything, I give up. Or to throw up your hands and say, oh, we'll never know anything. Isn't that great?
Just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, that's sort of the approach I had with Mythic. I wanted to, make these gods, monsters, devils, all more human, and also to say, it's not so bad if everything's absurd. Absurdity is actually kind of cool. Let's just roll with it.
As a quick sidebar, I got to know, because you've also written Godzilla. Like in addition to writing Kaiju and Fire Breather, you've also written Godzilla. Godzilla King of the Monsters, I believe. What is your favorite Godzilla film?
I have to say, well, I drew that comic book. I didn't actually write that. I drew that one. But I am a fan of the genre, and my favorite Godzilla movie is still the first Godzilla movie. Because to me, it's the scariest still.
I thought,
terrifying.
Godzilla 85 is pretty scary too.
Yeah, but to be honest, the one that has the place in my heart is Godzilla versus Megalon, because that was the one my mom let me go to by myself in a different time. 1976 was a different time. But she let me, at 10 years old in Boston, walk to the theater by myself to see the matinee of that movie. But yeah, that's why that one has a special place in my heart. And I think I went more than once because I was so excited about being allowed to go to the theater by myself.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I have a soft spot for the first Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, because I think my favorite kaiju is King Caesar, because...
Oh, yeah. He's so goofy.
Yeah. He spends, like, most of the movie just sleeping, and then he wakes up and gets his ass kicked, so I kind of relate.
Yeah, it's like, what is this floppy... Why is Godzilla fighting this puppet?
Not to mention, like, Mechagodzilla is just such a genius concept. Like, no, it's totally just a robot Godzilla.
That is cool. That's a no-brainer. Yeah, a robot Godzilla, of course, yes.
Now, there hasn't been a solicitation date for, at least that we've seen for issue 9. Do you have any, could you give us like a ballpark on when Mythic, because you guys kind of left it on a huge crossroads.
Yeah, we sort of, that's sort of the Image model now, is to kind of move to seasons. And we do that so there's not a too long a break between issues on a continued storyline. So we're going to take a couple of months off and let John get a head of steam up and, get out ahead of the story so there's no delays in shipping once the arc has begun. It's sort of the way Saga does things, Yeah,
the trade waits or trade breaks, yeah.
Yeah, trade breaks. So, and I guess the nomenclature in the industry now is to call them seasons.
I feel like that's what Marvel does with the constant relaunches too.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know. Yeah, don't get me into that. But at Image, it's sort of. There's a lot of. There's so much freedom in Image to do what you want as a creator, and that's such a fantastic, irreplaceably beautiful thing. But a lot of the onus for making sure your book is organized and on time and all the the minutia that comes with making a comic book, a lot of that's on the creators too, and creators aren't used to dealing with that for the most part, unless you have some experience in self-publishing. So it takes us a lot to get our feet under ourselves in terms of scheduling and print dates and all that stuff. Because up to this point in my career, if you'd asked me when is this book coming out, I would have no idea. No matter what assignment I had, the one I'm thinking about is the one on my desk. I'm not people have to tell me when my books come out. So, and it's a totally different scene at Image. You're responsible for more. So that's the exchange for the creative freedom. You have to take a little bit more of the real world nuts and bolts responsibility, and taking those breaks sort of help us get out ahead of things, and don't let ourselves get eaten up by the calendar.
Can we expect any more backup stories to kind of flesh out more of the background?
It's weird. We sort of did those out of necessity because John was doing that book at DC with Garth Ennis.
Yeah, Section 8.
The All-Star Section 8. And so we sort of had to do those by necessity, but they turned out so much fun that, I wouldn't mind doing more. And we have no shortage. I have no shortage of artists that I really love working with that I'd like to bring in to play. But honestly, it all depends on John, because sometimes I'll give him a 20-page script and I'll get back a 32-page comic book. So, if there's no room for a backup, there's no room for a backup.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they're all gorgeous pages. I think the really, to me, the biggest joy of the book has been watching John. He's exactly my age, or maybe even just 1 year older than I am, and I'm about to turn 50. So it's pretty remarkable to see an artist find a new gear at that age. Most of the time they're kind of they're not necessarily winding down, but they're sort of refining their already established style. And John instead hit 50 and is you know what, I'm going to just find a totally new way to draw. And it's going to be just as exciting and vibrant as the old way I drew. And that's what he's doing, I think, with Mythic. It's just so exciting to see him draw like that.
Oh, absolutely. And we were telling him when we had him on, his line work has a little more grit to it than it did. And this is coming from, this is from a guy that drew, All-Star Section 8, which was a pretty gritty book, and, of course, Hitman even earlier. So, yeah, there's definitely a bit more, it's a little more raw than I think some of his more previous stuff.
Yeah, I think, to me, what I noticed differently as an artist myself is his stuff used to be all about, because my work's this way too, it's all high contrast, flat blacks, very designy. And now he's really engaged in a lot more with texture. and using contours and stuff to describe texture and speed and atmosphere, which is like this whole new avenue for him. And I know I'm getting a little technical, but as an artist, it's really magnificent to see somebody hit the age where they usually start to coast and actually like find a new gear and like step on the pedal.
Now, Phil, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, but you've worked a couple times with Kevin Smith. How could you kind of like go in? We're huge Kevin Smith fans. I was wondering if you could kind of go into that a bit.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been very fortuitous for me. I think I was lucky in the fact that Kevin was a fan of my Swamp Thing run back in the day. I'm just a little bit older than Kevin, but in comics, kind of like rock and roll, sometimes you can be just a little, like, you're a fan of people that are only 5 or 6 years older than you are. And so when I was drawing Swamp Thing, he was buying Swamp Thing, and he was a fan of that run. So when Oni was doing all those Clerks books, and one came up that I think Duncan Fegredo was drawing him regularly, and one came up, and Jim Moffat, and one came up that one of those guys could do, and sort of Kevin went down his list of comic book creators he knew and liked, and said, "Well, get Phil Hester to do this one." So Andy Parks and I did the Clerks of the Lost scene, and it was a lot of fun, and it was, and Kevin was still kind of new to writing comics at the time. What he was doing was kind of almost giving you a screenplay, and you had to sort it all out and turn it into a comic book. But the process was so fun that when he pitched Green Arrow to DC, or maybe DC headhunted him. I think Bob Schreck at DC actually went to him and asked him if he wanted to, what character he wanted to take a crack at. And I think Kevin really wanted to make Green Arrow important again. And I think Kevin wanted Joe Quesada to draw it originally because they'd just done that Daredevil book together. But about that time, Joe Quesada got this other job running Marvel Comics. So
they kind of frowned on that sort of thing, at DC.
Yeah. And so Kevin, I think, just moved down his list of comic book artists that he had a good time working with. And so I wound up, handling Green Arrow from there. And that was a joy, and that was fun. And that sort of brought me to a new level of at least, reader awareness in comics. Because up to that time, I'd been pretty much kind of was seen as kind of an alternative kind of artist. Still superhero friendly, but, mostly, like most of my work up to that point had been for Vertigo or Dark Horse or places like that. And it was sort of my first real mainstream Marvel DC work. And, of course, that run was really kind of historic for us. And after that, I worked with him at Dynamite on both Green Hornet and Bionic Man. And those were both instances where Kevin had written screenplays for those characters. And Dynamite knew that I had experience, handling the way Kevin worked, with Green Arrow. And they asked me to adapt those books and sort of thumbnail them for the artist. And so it was a matter of me, kind of knowing how Kevin worked and adapting those screenplays. So, yeah, those are, the three big projects we've had together.
Yeah, and that Green Hornet run was really cool, too. I really dug that.
Yeah, it was fun.
But I got to thank you first for mentioning Ragman on this podcast, because amazingly, that's not the first time he's been mentioned. He was one of those characters that when I went to the local comic shop years ago now, and Sam and I were just flipping through the back issues, and I'm still in that mindset. I think all comic fans in the back of their head are in that mindset of if the character looks cool, they'll check out the comic.
That's how I feel about Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters.
Yeah, that's how I became a Moon Knight fan and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm flipping through, and I come across a couple issues of Ragman. And the cover is just the most striking thing of all time. So yeah, again, thank you for mentioning Ragman, because
all those the Joe Kubert covers of the original '70s run.
Yeah,
they're all gold.
Yeah,
they're fantastic. And And I was drawn to the weirdness of it at first, and then as I got older, I also appreciated just how good the combination of Joe Kubert and Nestor Redondo was on art. And so I came to appreciate it again. And I got to the point where, like, every time I was at a comic show or at a shop that had like a quarter box or whatever, I would, if I ran across that series, I would buy it again.
Yeah.
So I've got probably 6 runs of the 70s Ragman.
Yeah, I hope one day he'll make a reappearance somewhere, because I feel like
I'm sure he will.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's one of those weird things. There are these characters that, like, I'm sure it drives the DC editors crazy, because there are characters that people pitch them over and over and over again, and DC's like, look, it's not happening, like, we're not doing a Solomon Grundy solo book. It's not happening.
Yeah.
But, like, people, it's like, we tried Amethyst, Princes of Gemworld. We're not doing it again. But I'm sure they get it pitched over and over again, because those books meant so much to the people that became creators. Sometimes, like, there are albums that, like, were never huge sellers, but, like, that reached a lot of musicians and, like, influenced musicians, and there are comics like that too.
Sure.
There are weird characters like that really turned on. So, like, yeah, they get Ragman pitches, I'm sure, every week at DC.
Oh man, hopefully one day they'll stick.
That they have to gently shoot down.
Yeah, give me Ragman Rebirth. Enough of this, like, DC. Come on, Ragman Rebirth, DC.
Yeah, why not?
Well, with the way movies and Netflix series are going, all they need is, like, Marvel to have, like, pull some obscure character out, like a Ragman-esque, like Moon Knight. They'll do a Moon Knight series, and then DC's like, well, we got Ragman, and then they'll just make it the most badass thing in the world, and everyone will be a Ragman fan.
Put it in, just mention him in Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be perfect. Yeah, the little shop that he works at, just have that in the corner, and then you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's all it takes. It's just like, all it takes is somebody to, like, say, you could have had people just mention a character in Civil War, and, like, that back issue goes up like 300% the next day.
Totally. Yeah, because, like, I know for a fact right now at McKay's used bookstore, if anyone's listening, they have copies of the Joe Kubert Ragman there, and I haven't bought it because I already own it, but somebody needs to go there and pick it up because it deserves a good home.
Well, I'm going through that right now with I did a book with Giants at DC, an El Diablo book, like a miniseries, and it's, like, kind of infamous for being like it was a pre-New 52 book, and it was like the last issue is one of the worst selling issues ever from a DCU book, because it's a weird character, and, like, Giant and I are weird artists and creators, and and he's kind of an anti-hero, but, like, he's in Suicide Squad, so, like, all of a sudden people want those back issues like crazy. It's funny. It's cool. I mean, I went through it with Ant-Man too. Yeah, even though that's technically not Robert Kirkman and my Ant-Man, there's enough elements from what we did that they gave us a nice thank you in the book, heading in the movie, and just, interest in that in our run has, like, exploded overnight too.
Yeah, no, it's great how that works. I really like that, because, like, I was working at a comic shop a little while ago, and it was cool to see, like, little kids run into the shop playing Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was like, when I was a kid, I never played Guardians of the Galaxy, and you got little kids now who know more about the Guardians of the Galaxy than I'll ever know, and it's really cool how that works.
Yeah, I live in this weird world where, like, all of a sudden, like, my high school band teacher knows who Thanos is.
That's the ultimate. If your high school band teacher knows who Thanos is, then Thanos is made it.
That's wrong. I want to go back to where only we knew about that.
Yeah, right. Seriously. But I also wanted to mention, speaking of kind of, like, lesser known but equally cool characters, you were working on the Black Terror. And what's your and it's really great, interesting kind of run. What's kind of your background with kind of the Golden Age and pulp characters? Was that something you liked as a kid and still like nowadays?
Oh yeah, I was really lucky that my high school had both volumes of Steranko's History of Comics. You guys ever see that? Or
oh
know what I'm
yeah,
talking about?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So they had them in my high school library, and I still live in this little town in Iowa, and that's where I went to high school. And those 2 volumes were never in the library because I had them checked out. They were always in my locker. I would just bring them in and renew them and take them back again. And I was just so in love with those stories, like the romance of the Golden Age, the way he described it, and what it was like to be a comic book artist at that time or a creator. And I was just so in love with all of that kind of the mythology of the Golden Age that when it came time to work on that character, because of course back then, this is before the internet, before people were, uploading every public domain and non-public domain comic.
Mm-hmm.
Online for people to read. So all I really had to go on were covers. Those little tiny, Steranko printed those little tiny, like 2-inch by 3-inch thumbnails of covers in the history of in his History of Comics, and also like stuff I'd see in like the Overstreet Price Guide. Like those were my window into the Golden Age. And then when I got older and got to go to conventions, you'd see those Golden Age books up on the wall behind the dealer, and
sure.
You could look at them but never touch them.
Yeah.
And
always like
so,
$70.
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know if it was like just my imagination. Well, probably a lot of it was my imagination. But if you just got a little taste of that, your mind fills in so much.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so like Black Terror is like, oh, he's got to be the ultimate badass. What a name! And he has Superman seems like a nice guy, but Black Terror has a skull on his chest, And
he doesn't wear purple like the Phantom.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just cool to see, and at the end of the day, he was a pretty run-of-the-mill superhero.
Mm-hmm.
But just that name and that attitude was kind of cool to play with, and that whole Project Superpowers universe. We had a neat structure to it that we could get into and play around with. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love a lot of Golden Age characters that probably couldn't find an audience today, no matter who wrote or drew them. But
yeah.
I think they're just so neat and enthralling that, getting to work on the Black Terror was a nice taste of that. I think Airboy's a character like that.
Which
the
James
Golden Age
Robinson kind of did, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's so meta that it's its own thing altogether now. But I think there's really cool Airboy stuff to do on its own. But there's the Heap is another great character like that. And the Golden Age Robot Man and Plastic Man, all those kind of characters are really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping somewhere along with the whole Ragman reboot that the audiences will find the gold, they'll get interested in the Golden Age pulp stuff, because we talked about a lot on the show in the past, they kind of tried in the early 90s with the Shadow and the Rocketeer and the Phantom, and
DC tried with First Wave too.
Sure, with First Wave and Doc Savage.
Yeah, they did too. Yeah.
I feel like if it's gonna happen, because Dynamite did that great series with Masks. I don't know if you ever read that, where they kind of brought all the pulp characters together. I think it's only a matter of time, or that's just wishful thinking. But yeah, all those characters are so great, and those old serials are really fun to watch. A lot of those are easy to find because they are public domain, so you can watch the Phantom serials or.
Well, a lot of those characters are public domain. You could do a Black Terror comic tomorrow if you wanted to.
Yeah. So it's just. It's like you were saying. Is if the public sees it in a moving picture on the big screen, and it is like when I knew my dad would love Daredevil, but I couldn't convince him to read a comic until the Netflix show, and then once he saw him in action, he's like, oh, he's the coolest guy ever, and he's read every Daredevil thing now. So they just we'll see.
No, and I think to tie back to that mythology thing, finding out that there's this whole universe of these weird superheroes that have existed since the late 30s, it's sort of the same thing. Just seeing all these kind of colorful characters who have kind of inconsistent histories and origins and powers, and their popularity waxes and wanes. But just knowing that there's that whole universe of these fantastic fictional characters has that same sort of kind of enrapturing effect as learning about mythology too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have to point this out because I know it was kind of weird the way that it all kind of came about, but I read every single issue of your Wonder Woman, and when you took over the book from Straczynski, it, like, all due respect to Joe, it took on its own voice and just I think it's one of the most underrated Wonder Woman runs around.
Thank you.
Largely because I think it's largely underrated because right after they rebooted the entire universe.
Yeah, I know. That's part of it. Yeah.
But yeah,
that had something to do with it. Yeah. It was kind of weird circumstances. Yeah, it wasn't ideal. And we really didn't get much from Joe to go on. And I don't really understand any of how that all went down between Joe and DC, how that actually happened. All I know is like what I was left with, and they gave me the issues that had been written and said, all right, you've got 10 more issues. How are you going to do this? And I was like, oh, okay. But it was actually kind of fun to see him reset, the character like that. And then my task was to sort of like make that make sense with that larger tapestry of Wonder Woman. And I am really proud of that run. And I know it was born in a weird way, but I'm really happy with the end result. And I understand why they flashpointed New 52 did after that, but I still really feel like the two trades we got out of that hold up really well.
I guess they're kind of bringing, I assume, like Rebirth, they're bringing elements of pre-New 52 verse, though the interesting thing about your story was kind of an alternate universe Wonder Woman before we got an alternate universe DC.
Right, yeah. I that was unintentional, but yeah, that was sort of what I was, I was trying to make that make sense with what we did know about Wonder Woman. And I think you could see that, now that we're talking about Black Terror, that was sort of like the underlying theme of the Black Terror book I was doing too, which was no matter what kind of stories are told about a legendary character like that, there's like a core truth to that character. And for me and Wonder Woman, it was like the core truth of her character is like nobility, and no matter how many different ways you want to spin her as a character, you get back to that sort of virtuousness, that spirit of fair play that's at the core of her character that I really wanted to hammer home. And I hope I did. And, for the people that do read it, that didn't miss it between reboots, I think that's what I get from them when they bring it up to me at cons to sign.
I mean, yeah, it was a fantastic run. I would have. Is there any DC character you would really like to tackle again? Outside of, I suppose, like Swamp Thing and Wonder Woman.
Well, see, it's funny you ask it that way, because once I do a character, I never want to go back usually. And I've been doing comics professionally for 30 years now, I believe, somehow. And since I was in college. And Swamp Thing is the only character that I've done that I would want to go back to. I would like to draw that book again. Because it meant so much to me as a fan. And it meant so much to me at the beginning of my career to get to draw that book. And I feel like my talent wasn't up to my ambition at that point. And I'd like to go back to it now as sort of a more complete artist and tackle it again and show the world what I really would like to do with that character. But that also said, one of the other DC properties that I'm really in love with is Doom Patrol. of course.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, and if you look at Mythic, it's not too hard to see that it's John and I'm doing the Doom Patrol kind of.
Where's Negative Man?
Yeah, right. Well, it's kind of, we do have a ghost lady in the book.
That's true. Yeah.
But that's sort of, and it's not too hard to see that Watterson is kind of the hard-bitten veteran, like Robot Man. But yeah, that's, to be honest, the secret to whatever success I have in comics is that I will give a crap about almost any idea. You know, like you can roll up on me with any DC Marvel property and say, what's your take on this? And I love them so much from when I was a kid and even today that I will give you a take on, you know, name the property, like
Power
Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll give you a Power Pack take. I'd give you that by the end of the day, you know. You have to work harder than that to like try and stump me. Yeah, I will give a crap about almost any idea. And you know, if you're not Grant Morrison, if you're not Warren Ellis, if you're not, you know, Scott Snyder, and you want to make it in this business, you have to give a crap about that stuff.
I would say Son of Satan, but I feel like that's kind of like in your wheelhouse. Like he's one of the more...
Please, I've got one already. Yeah. You wouldn't believe how many pitches I already have for so many things. And I know I'm never, you know, likely to ever get to use them, but, you know, I'm ready. You know, if the call comes down and somebody says, give me Ultimate Speedball, I'm ready.
Nice.
What about Arm Fall Off Boy from the Legion of Superheroes?
Yeah. No, seriously, I've got a Legion of Superheroes pitch that, would include all those kind of dudes.
Arm Fall Off Boy, 127 hours.
Yeah. The Substitute, you know, the Legion of Substitutes, all of them. Yeah, they'd find their way into it.
So we ask everybody this question on the show. What are you currently geeking out over?
Boy, that's, you know, I have pretty varied tastes. Like when I'm kind of like that guy that you don't quite believe because he goes, "Oh, I'm into punk and bluegrass." You know, I am that guy for comics. You know, when I go to the comic shop, I'm buying like the alt lit comics, the superhero comics, the the Image comics. I'm buying everything. I have to say probably my favorite thing that's coming out regularly right now is Southern Bastards, and mostly because I think all Jason Aaron's projects have been really remarkable, and all of his collaborators have been really talented, and those are all excellent books.
Oh, he's got like the best Ghost Rider run ever.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But to my mind, Southern Bastards is the first time where Jason's trying to keep up with the artist. You know, like it's so well drawn. Jason Latour is just drawing the hell out of that book. And Jason's a great writer, and Latour is a great writer in his own right. That it's really like sort of the first time that I think Jason Aaron has like an equal as a collaborator, and the results are pretty magical because that book's like right in those guys' wheelhouse because they both are Southern Bastards. So it's a pretty remarkable book. But I follow creators more than anything, so. If there's a creator making work that I really love, I'll follow them onto Batman or onto like their mini comic that they're going to make and hand out at cons. It doesn't matter.
As long as it's got that seal of approval, their name on it.
Yeah, they're people that I admire, and I follow the creators I admire, and I don't really care about, like I'm never going to buy like every issue of Green Lantern because I have to find out what happens to Green Lantern. I even as a kid, I wasn't like that. Well, a little bit at the beginning, yeah. I was buying Micronauts no matter who did it, but I got over that when I was about 15 or 16, and that's about the age I got serious about becoming a comic book artist myself. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm not following Daredevil. I'm following Frank Miller. I want to see what Frank Miller's up to, and that sort of stayed with me my whole career. I follow creators I admire.
Just to, I guess, close this out then, Phil, what, like I was saying earlier, that first arc of Mythic, if I can enunciate today, ends on a pretty big kind of crossroads. What can we expect moving forward, without, I guess, giving the game away?
The next arc is about Nate learning the job, because he's in charge of Mythic. Not spoiler if you haven't read it. Nate's in charge of Mythic now, because we see in the end it's pretty cataclysmic and we lose a lot of main characters. So the theme of the next one is sort of learning to find new beginnings and things. Boy, that sounds lame. It's about it's sort of just like a way of even in like when things look really dark or you look defeated or they look hopeless, is to step up and go, why not this? Why not this other way? People I think are so stuck in old paradigms of things and thinking about just the way human society is structured. Putting me in charge of Mythic is a way for Mythic as an organization to go, why not this? Why not try this? And so it's about him learning the ropes and him, trying and failing a lot. And then a lot of the characters, the end of the first arc ends with Killer of Enemies sort of on the loose. And if you read Mythic, you know that he's sort of like a even more homicidal Hulk. And a lot of the next arc has to do with tracking down Killer of Enemies before he, rips the world in half.
So the stakes, as always, are never higher for the Mythic team.
Yeah, it never ends. But by the same token, it's always going to be down to earth and funny. We're always going to find ways to humanize these larger than life ideas, and that's the whole point. That's sort of taking the piss out of all these ideas is the whole point of Mythic as a book.
Well, Phil, do you have anything else you'd like to plug while we have you on?
Oh gosh, see, now here's this part where how I told you I'm terrible about what I'm working. I'll just tell you what I'm working on right now. On top of Mythic, I draw a book for Image as well called Beyond Belief. It's based on the Thrilling Adventure Hour podcast, and the last issue of that is coming out in the next few months or so. I write a book for Dynamite called Gold Key Alliance, which is sort of a revival of all those classic Gold Key characters like Turok and Magnus and Solar and Samson, and kind of bringing them up to date for the 21st century. And I just finished a Deathstroke annual for DC, drawn by Mirko Kolak, which is, I'm just seeing the pages come in now, and it's really incredible. And it is a kind of down-to-earth, brutal Deathstroke story with very few superheroes in it, and a lot of violent brutality.
I feel like the Terminator wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, it's rough stuff, and it kind of gets to the core of Slade Wilson as a character, and also we take a little swipe back at Deadpool.
Is he still a young sexy?
No. He's old and one-eyed again.
Excellent.
Just as God intended.
Yeah. Old, one-eyed, and homicidal.
Well, Phil, thanks for coming on the show. And again, Mythic Volume 1 comes out in stores, comic shops, and Comixology everywhere on Wednesday, June 22nd. Phil, thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, and anytime.
Lovely gentlemen.
Good interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite nice.
Judge Dredd and Ragman. I'm a happy camper.
And we got to talk, Golden Age. I feel like we don't
Yeah.
talk Golden Age much with creators.
Dude, the Golden Age rebirth in cinema is coming.
Remember when Shane Black was attached to reboot Doc Savage with Chris Hemsworth as Doc Savage?
He wanted Chris Hemsworth as Doc Savage, which would have been pretty dang skippy. I'm telling you, I'm like the crazy guy with the End is Nigh poster running around the streets, but it's like, Doc Savage is coming, The Phantom is coming. Like, I guarantee you, like, Mask 1 and Mask 2 were big sellers for Dynamite. I mean, so much so that, like, hell, a basically, like, superhero team of pulp characters warranted a sequel for Dynamite, which is Mask 2. I bet you they're going to try to do something down the line where they're going to try to, do the shared universe stuff. Because it all takes place in the 30s and stuff like that anyway, so.
So why not?
For the most part.
The way major studios are kind of picking up, stuff to have a shared universe, like
I love that.
Kind of like Universal's doing with their monsters, though they had always been in a shared universe since like the 40s, since like House of Frankenstein.
But now it's like official. Back then, it just no one really cared.
Russell Crowe
is Dr. Jekyll. Yep,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's there.
I wonder if Luke Evans is still gonna be Dracula. Probably. Did anybody actually see Dracula Untold?
No.
No, but remember how I mentioned about, I was like, I'd love to see a Beauty and the Beast live action? They're totally fucking doing that, and I totally forgot.
Yeah, it's called Beautician and the Beast.
Well, no.
But Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, but they're doing with Luke Evans and Emma Watson.
Well, they're doing that with, like, fucking everything now.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your... especially after, like, Jungle Book. I mean, did you know that Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland grossed $1 billion?
Yeah, because I remember when it came out, it made... Well, because everyone... you remember how everyone was so jazzed before that movie came out? They were like, Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter is the greatest casting of all time. And like they were freaking out about it. It was fine, except for that weird little slinky dance he does at the end, which is terrible.
I enjoyed the film.
No, but I enjoyed the film too. But I mean, the dance at the end was fucking weird.
It's a sequel next month.
It does. Yeah.
We have a giant poster for it in my theater.
Nice.
It's the reverse of the Captain America one, so eventually you'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
Makes sense because they're the same studio. Yeah. We did see Captain America. That's something we all did see.
Great segue.
Great, yeah.
Yeah. Flip that poster backwards.
Yeah. Pat both of us on the back for that. This was a nice tag team.
You tee him up, I'll knock him down.
Bam.
Yeah, man. It was, you've seen the reviews.
Yeah.
Our official review of it was you've seen
the reviews.
Done. End of episode.
Well, okay, here's something. We'll go more spoilery, I think, next week.
Yeah.
Give everyone we have the time to discuss it and give the.
Well, it's almost like we
it.
kind of like talk. If we talk about it over 2 episodes, it's like talking about it all in 1 episode. So okay, who is your favorite? Like either like scene stealer. Who for you really stands out in this movie?
Black Panther, man. As cool as it was to finally get Spider-Man back with the other Marvel heroes, or I guess just with the other Marvel heroes because they hadn't had a movie together yet. Black Panther like really just shined in the movie, and rightfully so because it really is kind of like it's a B story, but like it's a very heavy B story because it's still kind of the driving force of the main plot, with his father, King T'Challa, right? Or
T'Chaka?
He's T'Chaka.
I had the
Black
letters
Panther's
right.
T'Challa, and then his father's T'Chaka.
Okay. Got it. Now I know. I didn't really know the character before the movie, except that he existed. But the events of the previous movies are like what kind of started, but then the King's death is really like the instigating moment of the movie, and then Black Panther's revenge story is really the driving force behind like the ticking clock of the movie.
Yeah, he's very personally invested in the hunt for the Winter Soldier.
Exactly. So like that's why for me like it was all about Black Panther in the movie. Is he gonna fulfill his goal? Is he gonna kill the Winter Soldier, or is he going to figure out that it's all been a setup, all been a play by Zemo.
Yeah, Zemo.
My favorite 90s alcoholic beverage.
Yeah.
Again, another character that I didn't know. I mean, I knew about the drink, but I didn't know about Zemo?
Yes,
Zemo. Yeah, I didn't know about Zemo before.
The masculine Zemo.
Yeah.
So like Zima is like the diet.
Yeah.
May your first child be a May your first Zemo be a masculine Zemo.
You just put the little pink mask over top of the drink.
There was at my theater, we have a rotating wallpaper for our computer in the manager's office, and someone had downloaded a fan-made poster for Civil War, and it had, I guess it was after the full cast announcement, because it had all the characters in it. And in the background, it had Crossbones and another character that no one knew who it was, or like I didn't know who it was, and someone was like, "Oh, that's Zemo," and I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" So because I didn't even like hear the character's name in the movie, like I was just like, "That's the bad guy."
And the casting, they kept it under wraps until I don't think they even revealed it before the pre-release, any pre-release news for it.
No, yeah, they didn't.
Yeah. But yeah, so I had to look it up, and I was like, "Oh," because I had just come out of the screening. I was like, "Oh, the bad guy." He doesn't wear that in the movie. That's why no one knows who it is, like, in reference to the movie.
John, who's your favorite?
Well, I mean, you know that how hard I was geeking out about Black Panther and stuff before this, and you know I had mentioned that Spider-Man's my favorite Marvel character. So yes, Spider-Man was
Black Widow.
Black Widow. Spider-Man was definitely, you know, that was as much as, you know, I Black Panther's the guy that steals the show for me. I'm stumbling to that conclusion. But, like, Spider-Man was the one, like, as soon as I sat down, though, it was like, I can't wait to see Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like, the heart was racing when he shows up the first time. Like, you know, I'm that wussy guy that just gets emotional. Just seeing Spider-Man just be there was great. And seeing him get to play with the other kids. And seeing him be a kid. But, yeah, Black Panther is one of those things, you know, when he first shows up. And, you know, we'll go into this, you know, next week on the spoiler stuff. But, like, just there's one scene in particular with him that's so fucking dynamite. I will say, though, I'm not going to say it's surprising, but for me, the best performance in the movie, hands down, like nobody comes close, is Robert Downey Jr. I guess we can go to that afterwards, but I just wanted to throw that out there because he just kills it in this movie.
It's the least cocksure. I love using that word.
Yeah.
It's the least cocksure we see Tony Stark.
He's so it's
since perhaps the first Iron Man, if not ever.
So good in this movie, and Chadwick Boseman brings it, and Tom Holland bring it. They all bring it. But Chadwick Boseman has, you know, obviously T'Challa is a king, and so he has that regal quality about him, and that just air to him, and his voice, and his accent, and his mannerisms. You know,
the scene with a double Black Panther kick.
Oh yeah. That most of us are fairly still, you know, quiet when we watch the movie. Josh and Ken are much more of the kind of yeah, which is totally fine.
They're the live.
This is a crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
film.
It's a crowd pleaser film. I mean, you'd be stupid.
I don't know what you're talking about.
At least they're not clapping in their.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, thankfully, not a whole lot of people clapped in our screening.
But anyway, just to kind of the yin and yang, that the reason I said that about Josh and Ken, I love you guys, is that Chris, Sam, and I are usually much more reserved, quiet. Unless it's Henry Cavill shirtless, and then everyone stares at me, and I'm like, "Come on, Shimona." But yeah, there's a scene. This isn't a spoiler because you know Black Panther kicks ass, where he double kicks somebody in the air, and it's CG because it's fucking impossible to do. But he kicks him once, and while he kicks him, let's say with his left foot, he is in the air and he spins around and kicks him with the right foot. And when he does it, I was kind of like, "The fuck." And Sam goes, "Oh!" And so like for Sam to make a noise, and especially, you know, like Black Panther, like it was that's when I was like, you know what? Yes. Chadwick Boseman.
Sam stole the show.
Yeah, Chadwick Boseman, if you're listening to this, you got the Sam Stone seal of approval, my friend. So
he got stoned.
He got stoned. Yeah. I mean, Black Panther is he's the man.
Oh, mine's B-Cap.
With that, with the helicopter bicep shot.
Yeah, more impressive than anything Superman has done on the big screen.
Basically, just any scene he was in. You know, as far as the cinematic universe has gone, my favorite had been Tony. Kind of just even going in from the comics, but after the first Avenger and then really, Winter Soldier, it just switched to Cap nonstop.
You do have a lot of Cap swag.
Yeah, that kind of just started after, you know. I mean, before I just hadn't collected anything really of the Marvel characters.
when you tweeted that you were Team Cap on Twitter, what response video? Who responded? What official response video did you get?
Sam.
So did I.
Yeah, I think that's really just
So
about
did I, but
what
he was telling me to fuck off.
most people got was just Falcon telling them, either you pick good or fuck you.
I got Black Panther being like, made the wrong choice, bruh. In his own words,
Yeah.
What did he say since your name wasn't pre-programmed?
He just said, was just like, you made the wrong choice.
Oof. God,
Yeah.
you get double kicked, son.
Yeah. I even retweeted it because I was like, haha, my name is
Yeah,
it's
so-
just it's EG, so it's just
What if he was like E.G. Nolan? You fucked up.
I would have died.
I'm going to your house in Centerville right now.
But no, it was funny because
He just calls me egg.
Yeah.
People have done that.
Have
too.
they really?
Yeah, like
Egg.
because EG Nolan is my handle on a lot of things,
Yeah.
and people are like, "Oh, Egg Nolan," and I'm like, "It's one G," and they're both capital, and then like N is capital, and then OLAN is lowercase. Why is it not sinking in that it's letters?
Yeah, it's funny because when I did the Team Iron Man thing and I got the Falcon writing back, I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was just going to be like a hey, see Cap in theaters and pick your own side. And so when I clicked the thing, and he goes, "Yo, Jake," and I was like, "The fuck out of here!" And then I was like, and like I knew it was obviously like pre-recorded and stuff, but I just like kept playing it. He was like, "Yo, Jake," and I was like, "Oh, this is so fucking cool." Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
He sang my name.
Did he?
Yeah, it's just like Sam. You picked the right choice.
Part of me, like as I was doing it, I was like, I know this is programmed based on like my name. As it comes up, is like, should I change it to something that is pronounceable, like a generic name like Chris? Nah, I want to see what happens when they don't have a preset. And it was like I thought. They just didn't say the name. They just went right into the line.
Yeah.
Which means it's probably the first one they recorded, so it's the one where they're the freshest. They're not tired of saying the same line over and over and over again.
Could be the last one.
Could be the last one, and then in that case, they're like, "Fuck this kid. Get a name I can say."
Egg.
Egg Nolan.
This fucking egg.
I really liked Ant-Man.
He did a damn.
He
good.
fit
brought it.
right in. He fit in like he was like there the entire fucking time. So these guys are directing Infinity War. Like production on principal photography on that starts before the end of the year. I think it starts in like November. So
Doesn't that not come out until like 19?
18 for
18?
part 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what they're going to change the titles of them to.
They mentioned. I'm assuming it's like maybe it's Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War.
But are they
That'd be
going to
cool.
change the name of Spider-Man Homecoming?
No, that is set in stone.
Do you think there's going to be a subtitle to? Do you think there's going to be a subtitle to Justice League other than Part 1, Part 2?
Justice
No.
League.
No,
we got
it's set in
Affleck.
stone. But Infinity War, that one can
Unless
change.
Snyder, for some ungodly reason, does get canned before he
I
actually
mean,
finishes
they,
it.
did you not read the article that you posted on Jake's wall that said he's butting heads with Warner?
No, I did. But I mean, if Warner's just like, yeah, everything we've actually finished on this film so far, fuck it, we don't care.
They're gonna Richard Donner him.
Yeah.
They officially wrapped principal photography on Wonder Woman today.
Yeah, Josh posted a thing on my wall. I was like, yes.
Yeah, I should have asked Phil what he thought of
Oh yeah.
Gal Gadot.
Mm.
As no, I've got his email. Yeah. But
He
no,
just writes back. He's like, good.
it was fine. It was fine.
Not my Wonder Woman.
He said he tweets a video like Chadwick Boseman or
Yo, Sam.
Sam.
They did okay. I was like, oh, okay, all right. No, but I mean, and it's in all the trailers, so I don't know if this is necessarily spoiling anything. Also, Vision in a fucking sweater vest.
Oh, that was great.
Right, he was
walks in-
rocking it.
He's Frasier. He's fucking
Jacket
Frasier
style.
in that movie.
yeah. Vision knows how
Which
to
is
party.
great. Yeah.
Mm.
They all have their moments. I mean, if
Everybody has their moment.
It's like 10, 11, 12 Avengers showing up, and they all have their moments.
Yeah. In both in a fight and out of a
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah. That's good point. It's insane how good this movie. It's the most fun you're going to have this year, probably at the theater. There's a good chance,
we saw Sing Street.
Oh, but Sing Street's fucking good too, though. Shit. Yeah, Sing Street still might be number one for me, even over Civil War. But like, both are fucking great.
Although Civil War has me wanting to see something now. a buddy cop film between a Winter Soldier and Falcon.
It's called Lethal Weapon.
Ooh, they are getting too old.
And
for
there's
this shit.
4 of them. And by the time this posts, Chris and I have seen it in the theater.
Yeah, man.
Alamo showing the first one.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, da, 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 da. I know it's Beverly Hills Cop.
Also a great buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
A for effort, Sam. A for effort.
At least I recognized.
Yeah.
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 Well, yeah. What am I gonna do for the porno sax for Lethal Weapon? No, I mean that airport fight that's in all the trailers is like one of the most joyous like action scenes I've seen in a movie in a long time.
It's one of those scenes where like a lot of great superhero movies will have scenes like that. Like for example, Return of the Jedi. We always talk about like the 3 fights going on, right? And how the space battle's great, the moon of Endor and stuff like that, and the lightsaber duel. But for me, I was always like, I just want to see the lightsaber duel, even though everything else is great. In the airport battle, every time it cut to a different fight, I was just as happy as the previous fight they were showing because they were just killing on every single level, and it just was perfect. I mean, it's just a perfect fight scene. I remember Kevin Smith and Mark Bernard going into it in their non-spoiler review. We're talking about like it's like you're gonna love this. The trailers don't give away anything. It gives away maybe a second of it. Them running towards each other, but it doesn't give you half of it.
Yeah.
And even when you know where it's going, it doesn't matter because you're so glad it went there.
And I'm so glad that in the trailer, certain elements were digitally removed so as to not spoil certain things. Because unlike Josh, I like going into a movie as blind as possible.
Yeah.
I still went into this one somewhat very blind.
Yeah, well, welcome to my world.
Which is impressive considering it was
Welcome
out
to my world,
in
bitch.
foreign territories like a week before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could have read the entire script.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like, it's just, like, everybody, like Jake was saying, I am fully on board for Infinity War.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I didn't have my doubts before, but
No.
now I know they can handle, like, multiple plate
Sure.
spinning.
I was so burnt out on superhero movies at the beginning of this year. Like, the only one that I was looking forward to was Deadpool. And then, like, I was like, but I know I'm going to see Batman, Superman. I know I'm going to see Civil War because, like, I'm invested in those characters. So, and I was really happy that both of those movies ended up being, a pleasant surprise. Even more so with Civil War. Like, I'm not one of those people that has suddenly, gone turncoat and been like, well, Civil War is so much better, so therefore Batman v Superman sucked, because I've seen that, already popping up. But I will say I am Team Civil War. In my comics, I'm still DC, but in my movies, I'm leaning Marvel. But that's just because they have more experience at this point doing this cinematic
It's the
universe.
big payoff.
Almost 10 years since,
Yeah.
the universe started with that.
And they even there's a great there's a great scene where Vision talks
It's been
about
8 years.
Iron Man's been 8 years and
Yeah.
do you want to talk about... I don't give a shit if this thing goes long. Do you want to talk about Sing Street?
yeah, I do. It's the best if you guys out there have seen Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's very much like Perks of Being a Wallflower, but set in 1985 Ireland and dealing with forming a band. It's the same kind of motivation of the main character, where it's all about a girl. Isn't it always about a girl? And kind of the birth.
Every good story.
Yeah, and kind of this. One of my favorite relationship this year, and maybe in like years, is the relationship of the two brothers. Kind of the older, wiser, Yoda-like brother
Kind of
who's
burned out, too.
Yeah, who's burned out. Who's giving the younger brother, showing him, music to listen to and stuff like that. And I can relate to that as being the older brother with my younger brother, and kind of showing him, Kiss was a big band that I helped kind of, ease him into. But yeah, Sing Street is one of those just like life-affirming movies that you just feel so good after you leave it. Sam and I bought the original music from it as quick as possible.
Basically, as I was walking out of the theater, I just went on iTunes.
I'm still not bored of it. It's fantastic,
Yeah.
and it really is. I mean, it's a snapshot of this wonderful time in music, and just this really wonderful, simple, wonderful story about this kid.
Musically,
going
if
for it.
if you like Duran Duran, if you like The Cure, if you like The Jam, that all kind of informs music. But even like music aside, those emotions are never dated.
Yeah,
they'll always be around.
like you don't have to kind of like Everybody Wants Some. You don't have to have played baseball to enjoy that movie. You don't have to have ever been in a band to enjoy Sing Street. Now, there are elements that you'll be like, oh, I remember that, or I missed that, and that's fun. But like Sam was saying, the core things of that crush, that rush of meeting somebody or wanting to impress somebody or wanting to do better, and that's what it's all about. And it really is just one of the best movies of the year, if not still number one for me, because it's just like Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's one of those movies I know for years, once it comes out on Blu-ray and Vudu and all that kind of stuff, it'll be one of those comfort movies you just put on in the background when you're going to sleep or something and just listening to the music and stuff. It's great. Love it.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up from both those movies. I'd
5
even
out of 5 would go again.
Yeah, I'd even posted something. I was like, how I'm so fucking happy that both those movies exist at the same time in the theaters.
Yeah. And Everybody Wants
And
Some.
Everybody Wants Some. Yeah, no,
Those
don't
are my
forget.
3 favorite movies this year.
Don't forget about
Not
Everybody
Jungle
Wants
Book.
Some. Yeah, Jungle Book was, yeah. Like,
was
I remember
okay.
it was
It
fun
was
because
fine.
we saw Jungle Book, Sing Street, and Civil War back to back to back. Not the same day, but like, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And you could say it just got better with each one,
Absolutely.
It pretty much hit the apex for me, with it just Civil War was a culmination of all of it because obviously as a comic fan and the 8 years we've been waiting for this, and
It's a blockbuster movie done right.
It pays off so well. Yeah, it's just it's so great to just be like, when someone asks you about a movie, you don't have to be like, just be like, it's fucking great.
Yeah.
It's just everything you wanted.
Yeah. Blows your dick off.
This is gonna blow your dick off.
Remember before the movie started, before Civil War started, and what's her name
yeah.
was
Yeah, Sam was like,
because there was like a big loud bass rumble.
yeah, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something about your dick rumbling.
Oh no, it was like, oh, my testicles.
Oh, you're like, my testicles are rumbling, and like right as like the waitress walked by.
She's like, and she asked Josh, she's like, do you want butter on
Yeah,
that?
and you're like, butter on my testicles. You didn't say that, but like, just it was perfect.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
like fucking like harass the waitress.
no,
I was
no.
just like, oh, my testicles,
Yeah.
because
Good,
like it was
good because I really like Amanda. And I
Yeah,
don't
you're
want
just
her
like,
to be
yeah.
creeped out by my
Oh
friends.
my testicles!
Well, she
like,
might still have been freaked out.
yeah. But no, it's just like Sam has like great perfect timing with stuff, especially with like waiters and waitresses.
What was that one after Sin City 2?
I was talking. So there's a character, if you've never seen Sin City or read Sin City, called.
Go back to our episode after
I'm sure
Sin
we
City 2
discussed
came
it.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the Yellow Bastard.
Yeah.
And we had joked because there's a scene where like what's his face
Powers Booth,
Powers
Senator
Booth
Rourke.
has a picture of his son on his desk, and it's of that yellow bastard, not a picture of when his son was his son. And it's just like, what the fuck you doing? And he's just like,
It's clearly a screenshot from the first
yeah,
film.
yeah, it's this terrible fucking. Is it Nick Stahl who played that yellow
Nick
bastard?
Stahl, yes, from Terminator 3 and Carnival on HBO.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and the fucking man without a face, Mel
Right.
Gibson's directorial debut. Anyway,
But
and
we're talking about it at IHOP.
yeah, IHOP, and Sam and I, when we drove from the theater to IHOP, were just laughing so hard about that scene, like, and just came with this whole like,
Really about that movie.
we came up with this whole like fucking side story about that yellow bastard. And so Sam was like, we were like eating, and the waitress was like this really sweet old lady.
Very kind of country,
yeah,
she had
very
a bit of a drawl.
Yeah. And she was just very nice, just a classic kind of great diner waitress, you would as you say. And Sam just was like, that yellow bastard, like just as she walked by, and I swear to God, we never saw her again.
Well, no, she was just like, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back, and just was sobbing.
Yeah, I've just
heard-
snapped her faith in humanity.
Yeah, just heard tires
I have that
screeching, and
effect
she
on-
just fucking. But then she
Yeah.
saw Civil War, and her all
a year, 2 years
Two years later, and faith has been restored.
Guys,
and
we've
she
been
saw
doing this for almost 2 years.
and she saw Sing Street.
It's wild, man.
Yeah, that's true. August, I think, is
Josh
the,
has been on the show for over a year now.
Oh, Mr. Joshua, Mr.
14
Joshua,
months to be
Joshua.
specific.
Holy shit! Really?
Yeah, he started right after we finished the Marvel commentaries,
Oh shit!
which ended in March of last year.
Yeah. It's all a blur, but that's crazy to think. It's
I just the
14
it's-
months.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
brain
I've been
is
drunk
just
the
like
entire
a
time.
computer.
My brain is not.
Just, my brain runs Windows ME, so
Oh, still better than Windows 8.
Ooh, she's not my daughter.
Yeah, but man, go check out Civil War. Go check out Sing Street. Go check out Everybody Wants Some. You could watch The Jungle Book. I could give a shit
if you have
either
like I think little kids are gonna love the shit out of some Jungle Book,
Mhm.
and it's fine. It's a good movie. It's just not. I don't like it as much as the other ones.
I will say it's weird because I don't give a shit if I spoil this.
Ocean
It's
ended
not,
differently.
it's not plot heavy, but okay, if you really care, maybe don't listen to this part about the Jungle Book.
Earmuffs.
They do sing the Bare Necessities and Everybody Be Like You
Yeah.
from the 1967 original,
Yeah.
but the first song doesn't show up until like an hour and a half in the film.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, we're making this a musical now. Like they're oddly, even though they're old standards, they're oddly intrusive in that movie.
Yeah. Also, doesn't Baloo have a thing where he's always like itching his back and stuff?
In this movie, he's just obsessed on honey,
Yeah.
which he kind of has going
Like
on.
poop.
Yeah, if you're gonna try to fit in the song, you can at least fit in him like scratching his back. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. Also, Christopher Walken is a King Kong sized King Louie.
That for me, like, I there's nothing I disliked about the movie except that. I thought that was just so.
Even Scarlett Johansson.
She was
who
good, but
you
she's
famously
very
disliked.
mesmerizing.
Well, she's mesmerizing in that because she's just supposed to make you sleepy.
So
Yeah,
perfect casting.
she's really good in
And
that. And hey, to be
Jake
fair,
doesn't actually see her.
yeah, to be fair, she's good. She's pretty solid in Civil War.
Would you call it her best MCU performance?
I think Winter Soldier overall. I think even though she's got more to do, but yeah.
She was in Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Would you say give it to Iron Man 2?
You talking
Yes.
to Mike?
Okay, yeah, you have your own mic.
World's
established
greatest
you're part of the
silent
show.
podcaster
Richard
for
Crenna
14
podcasting.
months.
Yeah.
There it is.
But yeah, man, so check out those movies. And hey, Mythic Volume 1 in stores Wednesday, June 22nd. You can get the individual issues if you prefer. They're already out on Comixology. But, check it out. Those guys were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If you like kind of like Ghostbusters with errant magic that explores like Greek, I suppose Indonesian. I didn't know Indonesian mythology. So I guess it's there. Learn something new. And Norse mythology, then yeah, that all kind of crops up. And it, like Phil was saying, it isn't like a heavy read. They try to keep it light.
Yeah.
And go read some Ragman.
Dude,
Yeah.
McKay's bookstore, I'm pretty sure if my memory serves, they have the first issue ever of Ragman
So
there.
for those of you that live
I own it
in the
already,
Manassas,
so.
Virginia area, you can
Screech
go to
over there and get
McKay's.
that shit.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Sudley Road.
And check out,
We love them. They're
Ma-
actually really cool.
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
The Mask of the Judge Death. It's a really cool little short story that's in the back of The Life and Times of Judge Death, I believe.
Illustrated by John McCrea.
It's fantastic.
But yeah, this has been another installment of Geek Out, and I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
I'm Josh.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a new commentary every Monday. We've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.